Yep.
Thanks for having me. My name is Rachel, and I'm here to talk to you about a new project that I'm working on called the Z-Hub, and how we think that we can solve some of the imbalances in grain supply and demand for the craft brewers and distillers of New York State and in the Northeast. So I'm sure none of you are surprised when I say that the craft beverage industry is booming. I know when I go to the grocery store, it's hard to come home with a six-pack. And when I go to the liquor store, there's no shortage of New York State whiskey, bourbon, vodka, or gin. And the growth is due in large part to everybody out here and your increasing demand for locally sourced food, trickling down into alcoholic beverages. And producers are using locally sourced, value-added agricultural products like grain and hops in production. But the industry is also receiving assistance from New York State. The New York State Farm Distillery and Farm Brewery Acts provide incentives to certain farm brewers and farm distillers in exchange for using New York State grown grain in production. And the legislation is aimed largely at supporting New York State farmer livelihood. But there's one problem. There's not enough quality supply of specialty grains like barley, wheat, rye, and spelt to serve the demand and growing demand of brewers and distillers. But why is that? Because 100 years ago that wasn't the case. In fact, New York State was the breadbasket of the Northeast. And that was the case up until Prohibition. Following Prohibition, though, the dairy industry sunk its teeth in pretty hard, and some of those operations exceed 7 generations. So farmers today grow international commodities like corn and soy to feed those hundreds of thousands of cows in the Northeast. And they are inexperienced in growing barley, wheat, rye, and other specialty grains to high enough standards for human consumption. And that results in failed crops and cash losses. But it's not the only problem. Farmers generally market to other farmers. They're disconnected from maltsters, brewers, and distillers, who are mostly, not all, but mostly located in urban areas to serve their customer base. They in turn have to source ingredients from a slew of small farmers and receive grain of varied quality, creating kind of a burdensome nightmare. So what's the solution? Well, we think that a grain hub has the potential to alleviate some of these supply chain challenges by managing all of the post-harvest handling and marketing of specialty crops so that farmers can focus on what they do best, farming. And we believe that the Z-Hub will be a low-friction ingredient buying platform for maltsters, brewers, and distillers that links the growers to the producers in a way that inspires creativity and collaboration. But timing is of the essence. In 2019, farm brewers will be required to increase their ingredients of New York State grown grains by volume to 60% from 20% currently. So let's talk about the craft beverage supply chain. First, crops are planted and harvested. They are dried and prepared for bulk long-term storage. They are marketed, packaged, and distributed, sent to processing or malt houses, and then finally delivered to the brewery and distillery for production. But everything in this dotted line here is everything the farmer has to do. And all of these things, when compared to what he does for the dairy industry, which is largely number one, is more capital and labor intensive. In fact, because these specialty crops like barley are deployed as crop rotations and meant to improve soil health and fertility and are not primary revenue generating streams, the cost to update this equipment and this equipment to streamline the process is unjustifiable in most cases. So these inefficiencies are leading to a widening gap in the grain supply chain, where these purple areas here and here are estimates of the barley supplied to the craft breweries and other specialty crops to the craft distilleries currently, measured against estimated future demand in volume. And we believe that the imbalance between supply and demand by 2024 could reach upwards of $100 million. So how does the Z-Hub correct this imbalance? Well, First, we contract direct with the farms to ensure that they're paid at harvest. We also use drones and ag technology to assess and help manage our farmers' crops throughout the life cycle. We take that data, we collaborate it and summarize it so that next year they're ahead of the game. We want to ensure that quality grain is met throughout New York State. We are a marketplace for grains at harvest, thereby alleviating all of steps 2 and 3 from the farm and allowing them again to focus on what they do best. And we believe that as farms begin to see the cash flow benefits of rotating their traditional corn and soy crops with more lucrative crops like barley, that they will commit more acreage to the craft beverage industry. We are, again, a low-friction buying platform for maltsters, brewers, and distillers who receive, in the end, routine orders of raw grain managed to human-grade consumption standards, contained in aerated bins, fixed with electronic sensors to manage heat, humidity, disease, pests, infrastructure that's largely lacking across the eastern United States. Producers can receive a uniform kernel free of field or foreign residue that provides the highest starch extract when compared to an average on-farm delivery. The Z-Hub is a clearinghouse for specialty grains and craft food and beverage, intended to be a one-stop shop for all of your brewing and distilling needs, including cold storage for hops too, sourcing directly from New York growers as well. And as we develop the project, the Z-Hub will expand into malting, brewing, and distilling on site, showcasing quite literally from the ground up why grain and hops are value-added agricultural products in brewing and distilling. The project will be located in Gansevoort, New York, keenly co-located to major roadways, US Route 9 to its west border and I-87 to the right. The I-87 interchange is less than 2 miles away. Our distribution route initially will be west to Utica, north to Plattsburgh, south to New York City and Long Island, and into Vermont and Massachusetts. Our initial customer base is going to be small malt houses targeting the farm breweries and then direct to the farm distilleries, as those are the producers required to use a certain percentage of New York grown grain. We will then expand our marketing platform to large and medium malt houses that serve production facilities and larger regional breweries. And then again, as I said, to our on-site malt house, brewery, and distillery. We believe that we're the only project that is coming online in time to help brewers meet the 60% requirement in 2019. With the help of the Town of Moreau, the LA Group, and the Saratoga Prosperity Partnership, we have submitted a consolidated funding application to raise up to $300,000 or 20% of the project cost from New York State. Announcements will be made in mid-December with both public and private financing closing in February and construction begin in March. Inventory will arrive in July. And our first phase project budget is $1.5 million. We are currently in the process of raising the balance of $1.2 million and are seeking strategic partners and then also site planning, branding, and marketing assistance. My name is Rachel Dubb. My email is at the bottom here, along with my phone number, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Thanks for having me.
So that was awesome, by the way. Building a two-sided market is notoriously difficult, especially when you need to do it simultaneously. What are some tactics and strategies to help us around that?
Sure. Well, I have a background, and so does my family, in agronomy. So I think if you're saying, I think the question that I'm hearing is, how are you going to tackle the farming end and the marketing end?
The adoption from both sides.
Yeah. So I think between our history in agronomy, you know, layering with the investment banking end of you know, assisting in the whole financial aspect of running a business, and some of the networking capabilities we are currently marketing to farm breweries and farm distilleries, you know, and serving a hole in the market is, you know, we're going to tackle that. We also will be hiring qualified personnel to tackle some of that. Anything else? Yeah.
Hello, I had a gig a while back where I interviewed a lot of farm breweries in New York State and some like Foster's and grain farmers as well. And from that experience, it seemed like the real gap that exists right now, and is going to only increase in the coming years as the sort of percentage ratchets up, is actually a shortage of quality, right? It's not
Yes,
like
that's
there's
exactly
barley being grown.
correct.
It's that barley being able to be grown consistently well enough to go into high quality brewing operations.
Yep.
That's where the real problem was. Can you talk a little bit about how you can help farmers who are growing barley now grow it better or more consistently?
Yeah, so we actually do grow barley for malt houses in New York State, and it's a difficult crop to grow here. There are a number of reasons why that's the case. What I can say is we are self-funding the research and development on which varieties grow well here in New York, and are focused largely on winter varieties of barley because they're higher yielding. I can't ask a farm to displace his corn crop that he yields 200 bushels an acre for barley that yields 50 because it's a wash. No matter what the premium is, it's just a wash, right? So we need to increase yield, which we are self-funding our research and development, which as we contract with our farmers, we will tell them, here are the varieties we are contracting for, and this is why. Element, again, to support the cash flow. In addition to that, there are some varieties that are not being explored today, and that's because of the lack of infrastructure at the processing facility level. And we will try and tackle that by providing some of that lack of equipment and infrastructure as we phase into the second part of the project. But other than that, you know, it's really a communication thing and talking about where to plant, how to rotate your crops, which crops barley can't follow, when to, you know, if you're doing conventional practices, when to spray for disease, and other, you know, more agronomy focused, larger discussion for, I think, this platform. But, you know, to answer your question, we are doing that ourselves, and we're working closely with Cornell University as well as Hartwick College to do all of that.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Rachel.